This video is based on a plenary presentation given by Stefan Fortuin at the 15th gathering of the Design Thinking Research Symposium in Lisbon, Portugal on the 17th of June 2026. The research started 6 years earlier when I was teaching design thinking. Back then, a student came up to me and said, "I came here to learn design thinking, but you teach me a process." This made me think and led to this research. I will present some of the challenges we face as a discipline, the root causes behind them, and a possible way forward. Carlgren researched the challenges we face when applying design thinking in large firms. I can summarize these challenges in one single word: resistance. Resistance to almost everything we do, from the practical application to the outputs we produce. This is a major problem for our discipline, and the stakes are quite high. If we want our discipline to mature, we should not accept this or suffice. We should ask from ourselves the same we ask from our clients, to go beyond our current thoughts and ideas. Or else, we run the risk of becoming irrelevant. How can thinking, which is supposed to take place inside our head, cause such organizational and interpersonal resistance? I decided to take a closer look at the root causes of this resistance, and I was able to narrow them down to just 3 root causes. First, we teach design thinking in an implicit and experiential way. This means you teach one thing, a process, and they learn another, thinking. This leads to very different personal understandings of what design thinking is. In addition, by prescribing processes, we conflate thinking, doing, and the process. The highly individual learning experiences cause a lack of common ground, but something more fundamental is missing, a core foundation based on thinking, which leaves us with the only option currently available, that of implicit learning by following a prescribed process. Tweaking these prescribed processes, adding more lines and options to them, or defining in more detail the methods to be used, is not going to fix our problems. How do we move forward then? The key to a new way forward is to separate between thinking, doing, and process. To create a core foundation based on thinking, and then add cognitive enhancements as options, as well as letting a process emerge from the situation at hand. Let's start with the first aspect and create a core foundation based on thinking. For the core foundation, we can extract different types of thinking from the 3 cognitive strategies which are used by experienced design thinkers and which we are all familiar with. First, designers alternate between phases of creative exploration and of critical investigation. This gives us 2 types of thinking: creative thinking and critical thinking. Designers also alternate between periods of external interactions and internal reflections. This gives us 2 more types of thinking: interactive thinking and reflective thinking. Don't worry, the names are just labels. What is important are the effects of each type of thinking and the basis of their effects. Now for the last pair. Designers vary the level of abstraction of their thinking in 2 ways. First, by varying their focus between overview and details, and also by changing their level of engagement between distant and emphatic. This gives us the last 2 types of thinking: abstract thinking and specific thinking. Now we have 6 types of thinking. Here is an overview of the 6 types of thinking in 3 opposite pairs. It shows the different basis of the effects for each pair: a change in the scope, or number of ideas, for the first pair; a difference in the source and means for information gathering for the second; and a variation in focus and engagement for the last. It also shows the different effects within each pair, an increase or decrease in the scope for the first pair, internal reflection versus external interactions for the second, as well as the variation in the level of abstraction between overview and details and between distanced and emphatic. Let's create a useful model for these different types of thinking. We can arrange the 6 types of thinking in an intuitive 3-dimensional structure, shown here, with creative thinking pointing to the left, critical thinking to the right, interactive thinking forward, reflective thinking back, abstract thinking up, and specific thinking down. Why would we do this? Because this structure shows us how different types of thinking can be combined, so that they enhance each other when applied in design thinking activities. Let me explain. The 3 dimensions of the structure creates a thinking space, shown here. Each node in this space, indicated by a dot, represents a possible combination of the different types of thinking. These combinations are called modes of thinking, and these modes are then applied in different design thinking activities. For example, we can combine creative thinking left with interactive thinking forward. This combination is applied in an activity called co-creating. Another example, we can combine critical thinking right with reflective thinking back and abstract thinking, up. This combination is used in an activity called framing. Note that the thinking space indicates 26 possible combinations. Here's an overview of 26 fundamentally different design thinking activities in which these different modes of thinking are applied. Let's move to the next aspect, doing. In addition to combining different types of thinking, designers enhance their cognition also by combining thinking with doing. There are 4 different groups of cognitive enhancement options related to doing. Note the word options. Designers enhance their cognition by including context, by engaging in interactions, by using their imagination, and by involving their senses. Here are some examples. I will highlight 2, the ones at the center. First, stories, or storytelling. This combines including context with engaging in interactions and often uses your imagination as well. Another example is sketching or visualization, which combines using your imagination and involving your senses, your hands and eyes. You can add any of these options to any of the 26 modes of thinking mentioned before, where suitable and where practical. So much for doing. Now over to the process. Instead of prescribing a standard process, we should let a process emerge from each unique and evolving situation at hand. As a byproduct of content-based decisions, to create such a process, an elemental process is provided. It consists of an undetermined activity at the bottom and an evaluation event shown at the top. During the evaluation event, you determine what your next activity is going to be by using what Donald Schoen calls reflection, on, action. On the other hand, during an activity, you use reflection, in, action, to monitor and maintain the effectiveness of the activity. If the activity is deemed not to be effective anymore, you stop the activity and switch to the evaluation event. By alternating between an activity and an evaluation event, a unique process emerges. This approach, called empirical process control, allows for the use of custom activities, as well as for creating and maintaining an overall more efficient and effective process. So much for describing the 3 aspects. Where does the separation of the 3 aspects lead to? We now have the choice between the implicit, prescribed, and process-centered approach on the left, and an explicit, empiric, and cognition-centered approach on the right. I would argue for using the latter. What does this mean for our teaching? By separating thinking, doing, and process, we can teach our students an approach with an explicit core foundation based on thinking, in particular on thinking abilities, thinking agility, and thinking awareness. This provides our discipline with a cognitive foundation and a much-needed common ground. We can then teach our students cognitive enhancement options so they can select and apply them when and where appropriate, as well as teach them the metacognition they need to create and maintain their own emerging processes. But more importantly, they will learn an approach which is flexible and agnostic about any application area. The goal is to create an approach which causes less resistance, is more effective, and produces better outcomes. So what is next? We could test the effectiveness of this explicit approach compared to an implicit approach. But we could also band together and use our joint skills and expertise to develop a core foundation for our discipline, as well as a new learning system for it. We could then discover how this model can improve our communication and level of control and agency in interactions with others, and with AI, for example. We could also discover the gambits that are particularly effective in other application areas. And based on a solid shared foundation, we could establish the much-needed roles of design thinking master for implementations and of design thinking coaches for guiding the applications, whose skills allows them to take on any complex problem, independent of the application area. Here is an overview of a possible way forward for our discipline, a new learning system for design thinking, from the thinking foundations at the bottom, through the cognitive enhancement options in the elemental process, to the metacognitive abilities at the top. A system that is explicit, empiric, and cognition-centered, designed to prevent and overcome the resistance we currently face. A discipline that causes much resistance is at risk of becoming irrelevant. The friction we encounter may be a sign that we need to change our own ways to better help ourselves, our clients, and our customers. So let's reframe design thinking and create a solid foundation for our discipline to evolve, mature, and thrive. Reactions are invited to the suggestions and proposals made in this presentation. Thank you for your attention.